I was certain that the Indian Circlet would see the light of day again. But to imagine that it would be Catherine, not Camilla, wearing it, that was a twist I simply did not foresee. That evening at Windsor was far more than a mere state banquet. It became a moment of genuine historical intrigue. The Queen Mother's beloved signature tiara returned after 20 years of silence, yet it crowned a woman whom we are used to seeing in a very different style of jewelry. And the surprises did not end there. The rarest of the Greville emeralds also stepped out of the shadows, revealed in a completely new guise. However, to truly decipher the jewelry code of that night, we must go back to the very beginning of the day, because the first hint of the sensation to come was made that morning, right at the steps of the plane. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. There is a distinct crispness to the air at Windsor in December, isn't there? A sense of history settling into the ancient stones. On the 3rd of December 2025, as the King and Queen prepared to welcome the President of Germany, the atmosphere was thick with that specific blend of diplomatic anticipation and family memory. State visits are never just about politics. They are a conversation spoken in the language of jewelry. And on that particular day, the ladies of the House of Windsor were speaking very clearly. Let us begin at the very start of the day, with a moment that might have seemed routine, but was layered with intent. When the Prince and Princess of Wales arrived to greet President Steinmeier, Catherine stepped out in a coat of deep, intense blue. Now usually, we might expect royals to dress in the colors of the guest nation's flag, perhaps touches of black, red, or gold. But here, they made a more sophisticated choice. They opted for Prussian blue. This was no accident. This specific pigment originated in Berlin in the 18th century and is deeply woven into German cultural history. It is a color that speaks of European stability and diplomacy, a way to pay tribute to Germany's heritage without the literal interpretation of a flag. It was a subtle, intellectual nod to their guests. But I want you to look closer at the brooch pinned to her coat. It is the Prince of Wales' feathers brooch. This isn't merely a pretty arrangement of diamonds, it is a badge of rank. Created in 1863 as a wedding gift for Princess Alexandra of Denmark, it bears the Prince of Wales's motto, Ich dien, I serve. Now, Catherine often chooses this piece for diplomatic occasions, simply because it represents her title. It is her signature jewel for moments when she is firmly ensconced in her role as the future queen. However, on this particular day, that historic motto added a lovely, subtle layer of resonance to the welcome. Since Ich dien is German, the brooch became a happy coincidence of history, or perhaps a very quiet, graceful nod to the guests. And did you notice her earrings? She paired this historic, heraldic brooch with the double sapphire and diamond cluster earrings that belonged to Diana, Princess of Wales. Catherine has been wearing these since the Platinum Jubilee in 2022. They are the perfect companions to her engagement ring, creating a visual harmony of sapphires that felt both nostalgic and entirely her own. As the party moved to Windsor Castle for the official welcome, we saw Queen Camilla. She too had embraced the Prussian blue palette, appearing in a velvet-trimmed coat of the same rich hue. But her choice of brooch was a masterclass in dynastic history. She wore Prince Albert's brooch. This is a piece with a heartbeat. It was given by Prince Albert to Queen Victoria on the night before their wedding in 1840. Victoria loved it so much, she wore it on her wedding dress the very next day. Albert, of course, was German, a prince of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. By wearing this specific sapphire, surrounded by 12 brilliant diamonds, Camilla was doing something quite touching. She was using a jewel to build a bridge between the British monarchy and its German roots, honoring the man who shaped so much of the family's destiny. It was a gesture of profound respect, don't you think? Once the cold wind of the welcome ceremony was left behind, the group moved inside the castle to view a display of items from the royal collection. This is the moment I always love, when the heavy coats come off and the indoor jewelry is revealed. It is often here that we find the most personal touches. When Catherine removed her coat, she revealed a surprise that speaks volumes about her modern approach to royal life. Beneath that historic 1863 brooch, she was wearing a 5-row pearl necklace. But these were not pearls from the royal vaults. This was a piece of costume jewelry by Susan Kaplan, a vintage-inspired necklace we last saw her wear on Garter Day. I find this mix incredibly charming, don't you? She pairs a priceless, dynastic brooch with accessible fashion jewelry. It creates a balance, a reminder that while she is the future queen, she is also a woman of her own time. Queen Camilla, however, had a different story to tell with her dress ornaments. Pinned to her blue dress were 2 diamond clips in the shape of ivy leaves. These are the Greville ivy leaf clips. They were made by Cartier in the 1920s and 30s and were a favorite of the late Queen Elizabeth II. In fact, they were a gift to Elizabeth for her 21st birthday in 1947. For Camilla to wear them is a gentle act of remembrance. We saw her wear them for the first time at King Constantine's memorial and again at Sandringham for Christmas. They seem to be becoming a signature piece for her, but looking back now, knowing what we know about the evening that followed, I wonder if these clips were a hint. You see, these clips belong to Mrs. Greville, a woman whose bequest of jewelry to the royal family is legendary. By wearing the modest ivy leaf clips during the day, Camilla was quietly foreshadowing the events of the evening. It was as if she were whispering a clue to us. We also caught glimpses of the Duchess of Edinburgh in diamonds and the Duchess of Gloucester in classic pearls, both ladies saving their fire for later. Because if the ivy leaf clips were a whisper, the evening was about to bring a shout. As the sun set over Windsor, the vaults were being unlocked, and a tiara that had not been seen for 20 years was being prepared for a sensational return. And the evening did not just whisper, it roared. We often play a guessing game before these events, don't we? We place our bets on which tiara might appear, but I must confess, when the first images of the Princess of Wales emerged, I actually paused to check if they were real. For a fleeting second, I wondered if I was looking at an image generated by artificial intelligence, because what I was seeing seemed so incredibly unlikely. There, resting on Catherine's hair, was the Indian Circlet. This was a moment of pure theater, a true coup. For years, jewel watchers, myself included, have assumed that if this masterpiece were to return from the vaults, it would be Queen Camilla who would wear it. It seemed the natural choice. After all, Camilla has effectively become the custodian of the Queen Mother's style. Think about it. She wears the massive Greville honeycomb tiara, she favors the 5-stranded Greville festoon necklace for galas, and she pins the Queen Mother's brooches to her coats constantly. Even her engagement ring, that spectacular Art Deco diamond, was the Queen Mother's. With such a clear affinity for that specific collection, I was certain the circlet was next on her list. Instead, we have witnessed a generational shift. The king has opened the vault doors for his daughter-in-law, entrusting her with a piece that hasn't been seen publicly for exactly 20 years. To understand why this choice was so poignant for a German state visit, we must look back to the man whose brooch Camilla wore earlier in the day, Prince Albert. This tiara is his legacy. It is the only tiara designed by Prince Albert that remains in the main branch of the royal family today. The story goes back to 1851 and the Great Exhibition. Albert, ever the innovator, was mesmerized by the jewelry presented to Queen Victoria by the East India Company. He was struck by the Mughal arches and the lotus flower motifs, and he sketched a design that captured that exotic elegance. Garrod brought his vision to life in 1853. But here is a detail that makes the piece even more fascinating. The tiara we saw on this occasion is not exactly what Albert designed. Originally, those arches were filled with opals, Albert's favorite stone. But history, and perhaps a bit of superstition, intervened. First, there was a legal crisis. In 1858, after a fierce court battle, the Hanoverian branch of the family won the right to Queen Charlotte's jewels. It was a devastation for Victoria's collection. The diamonds were stripped out of the circlet and sent away to Germany. Victoria, heartbroken but determined, had Gerard rebuild it immediately, though they had to leave a small gap at the back, meaning it is no longer a closed circle. It was Queen Victoria herself who designated this circlet an heirloom of the crown, specifically intended for the use of future queens. But when it passed to her daughter-in-law, Queen Alexandra, superstition intervened. Alexandra refused to wear the opals, believing them to be bad luck. She had them removed and replaced with the Burmese rubies we see today, rubies that had been given to Victoria in the 1870s. It is a jewel that has been broken, stripped, and remade, yet it survives. The Queen Mother wore it throughout her widowhood. It was one of the few big pieces she kept after her daughter became queen. Elizabeth II wore it only once, in Malta in 2005, and then it fell silent. Until that evening. Seeing it on Catherine was a revelation, though it certainly sparked a lively discussion among jewel watchers. The princess chose to wear it with her hair down, styled in loose waves, paired with a Jenny Packham gown in a deep, icy blue. The effect was striking. I saw one comparison describing her look as that of a medieval queen, and I think that definition fits perfectly. However, I must admit, it was unusual to see such a wide, architectural piece worn this way. We are so accustomed to seeing it on the Queen Mother, who always nestled it deep into a voluminous bouffant hairstyle, anchoring it firmly so it framed her face. On Catherine, sitting high on loose hair, the silhouette looked quite different, didn't it? In some photographs, it even appeared to tilt slightly to one side. It was perhaps not the anchored look we are used to from the archives, but it was undeniably a bold, modern interpretation. And did you notice the earrings? She paired this Victorian masterpiece with the Queen's diamond chandelier earrings. These are a long-term loan from the late Queen, and we've seen Catherine wear them before, notably at the diplomatic reception in 2013 and the Chinese state banquet. They are dazzling, certainly, though I found myself wondering if a pair of ruby earrings might have tied the look together, highlighting those Burmese stones in the tiara that can sometimes get lost in the sparkle. But these are minor quibbles in the face of such a treat. The Princess of Wales has sent a clear message. She is ready to carry the weight of history. While we are all breathless over Catherine's surprise, Queen Camilla was quietly orchestrating a revelation of her own. She didn't just stand back. She reached for a piece of jewelry that carries its own heavy, glittering history, a piece that the late Queen Elizabeth wore only once in her entire 70-year reign. If Catherine's choice was a surprise, Camilla's choice of tiara was a statement of absolute continuity. Resting on her hair was the silhouette we all know by heart, the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. For many of us, this is the tiara. It is the image on the banknotes, the profile on the coins, the sparkle on the stamps we have used all our lives. It was, without a doubt, the late Queen Elizabeth's most beloved diadem. She called it Granny's tiara, a sentimental wedding gift she received in 1947 from Queen Mary. But its history goes back further, to 1893, when a committee of women, the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland, raised funds to commission this delicate, spiked masterpiece from Gerard for the future Queen Mary. There is a tremendous emotional weight in seeing Camilla wear it. She first took it up in 2023, and every time she does, it feels like a deliberate nod to her mother-in-law. But there is another reason why this tiara is so cherished by queens, beyond sentiment. It's engineering. It is famously lightweight and comfortable to wear, which is no small matter during a long state banquet. And here's a detail for the true jewelry historians among you. The tiara we saw on this occasion is not exactly how it was born. Originally, those diamond spikes were topped with pearls. Queen Mary, with her ruthless eye for design, removed them, transferring them to the lover's knot tiara, and replaced them with diamonds, making the piece lighter and infinitely more sparkling. By choosing this specific, iconic piece for a state banquet, Queen Camilla is making a clear visual link to the past. It is the definitive Queen's tiara, and seeing it on her is a powerful reminder of the continuity of the crown. But if the tiara was a nod to tradition, the necklace was a stroke of genius, and a bit of a detective story. At first glance, many watchers mistook the green fire around her neck for the famous Greville emerald necklace, that heavy, garland-style piece the Queen Mother adored and wore constantly. But look closer. This is something far rarer. This appears to be the second emerald necklace from the legendary Greville bequest. While the palace has never officially confirmed its provenance, Experts widely believe this matches the description of a necklace left to the Queen Mother in 1942, described in the inventory simply as having cabochon emerald drops. For nearly 80 years, this piece effectively vanished. It wasn't until 2019 that Queen Elizabeth II finally brought it into the light for a diplomatic reception. It was one of her final tiara appearances, and she wore it in its full, majestic form, dripping with heavy cabochon emerald pendants. And now, Camilla has given it a new life, but with a twist that speaks volumes about her own style. Do you notice the difference? For this banquet, Camilla has done something quite bold. She has removed those heavy pendants. She is wearing just the geometric, square-cut emerald and diamond framework. I find this modification fascinating. By detaching the drops, she has transformed a massive antique into a sleek, almost Art Deco collar. It sits higher on the neck. It looks cleaner and more architectural. It was a brilliant move. Had she worn the full version with that teal gown and the sash, it might have looked overwhelming. Stripped back, it looks modern and incredibly chic. Proof that Camilla is not just a custodian of these jewels, but a curator. She didn't stop there. To balance the history of the Greville emeralds and the girl's tiara, she turned to her own personal history for her earrings. These are not heirlooms of the crown. These are her modern diamond earrings, the pear-shaped drops suspended from a complex diamond cluster. We believe these were a wedding gift from King Charles, or perhaps acquired around the time of their marriage in 2005. She wore them for her very first black tie appearances as the Duchess of Cornwall. They are deeply personal to her. They are versatile, full of fire, and they bridge the gap between the heavy antique emeralds and the lightness of the tiara. It's a lovely touch, mixing the institution's treasures with a gift from her husband. And we must look at her wrists. On this occasion, Camilla revived a styling trick straight from the Roaring Twenties. On her left wrist, we see the unmistakable glint of the Queen Mother's Cartier Art Deco bracelets. The Queen Mother possessed a set of 5 of these geometric diamond bands. In the 1920s, she would often wear all 5 of them stacked together on one arm, a massive, dazzling wall of diamonds that became one of her signature looks as the young Duchess of York. Typically, both the late Queen Elizabeth and Camilla have been more restrained with these pieces, usually wearing just 1 or 2. But here, Camilla went for maximum impact. She stacked at least 3, perhaps even 4, together on one arm. It was a dazzling echo of the young Queen Mother's style, providing a heavy, rhythmic sparkle that anchored the whole look. There is something very grounding about these bracelets. They remind us that while the necklace might be modified, the luxury is absolute. Finally, there is a small but crucial detail pinning her sash of the Order of Merit. It is a piece that is purely functional, yet deeply historic. Queen Victoria's diamond bar brooch. Commissioned by Victoria in 1838, this isn't a brooch for show, it is a brooch for duty, designed specifically to secure heavy ceremonial ribbons. But here is a detail for the sharp-eyed. The royal collection actually contains 2 very similar diamond bars. The late Queen Elizabeth II and Queen Mary usually preferred the longer version, set with 14 diamonds. However, Camilla has chosen the slightly shorter 10-stone brooch. This specific piece was the favorite of the Queen Mother, who wore it constantly to secure her own sashes. It seems fitting that on a night when Camilla channeled the Queen Mother's style with her bracelets, she chose her brooch as well. So, the Queen's look was a fascinating mix. The late Queen's most famous tiara, the Queen Mother's brooch and bracelets, and a Greville necklace modified to suit Camilla's own modern taste. And speaking of history coming to life, there was a particularly thrilling detail about the evening that might have escaped a casual glance, but certainly not ours. While Queen Camilla was busy modernizing her look, 2 other senior royal ladies were doing something quite literally breathtaking. They were wearing jewels that, until very recently, were sitting behind glass in a museum display case. Both the Princess Royal and the Duchess of Gloucester attended the banquet wearing tiaras that had just returned home from a prestigious Cartier exhibition. By the way, I am so curious. Were any of you lucky enough to visit that exhibition? Did you manage to see these treasures while they were still museum displays? Do let me know in the comments, because for the rest of us, it is a rare and singular kind of magic to see these masterpieces liberated from their velvet stands and placed back where they belong, under the chandeliers of a royal ballroom, breathing and sparkling as they were intended to do. Let us look first at the Princess Royal. Princess Anne is, as we know, a woman of immense practicality, but her choice for the evening was deeply sentimental. She wore the aquamarine pine flower tiara. It is a piece by Cartier, commissioned around 1938 by her grandfather, King George VI, as a 15th wedding anniversary gift for his wife, Queen Elizabeth, the future Queen Mother. I have always found the design of this tiara incredibly moving. It features stylized pine cones, or pine flowers, set in diamonds and aquamarines. Now, in the language of flowers and symbols, the pine tree represents endurance, eternal life, and steadiness in the face of winter storms. What a fitting tribute from a king to the wife who supported him through the abdication crisis and the looming clouds of war. The Queen Mother gave this tiara to Anne as a wedding gift in 1973, and, in true Anne fashion, she didn't just accept it, she made it work for her. She famously had the central element removed to create a brooch, shortening the tiara to better suit her hairstyle and her no-nonsense approach to gala dressing. Seeing it back on her head after its museum holiday felt like a nod to that continuity we so cherish. For this banquet, she wore the jewels as a complete set. The tiara, back in the vault after the recent Cartier exhibition, was paired with her aquamarine pendant and earrings. And, as is often her custom, she pinned the converted central brooch to her sash, uniting all the elements of this historic parure. The Duchess of Gloucester's choice was a triumph of sheer, majestic architecture. The Duchess, Brigitte, is often the unsung hero of royal jewelry, isn't she? She wears the heavy luxury pieces with an ease that is truly enviable. She wore the Cartier India tiara. This is a piece of immense presence, originally belonging to Princess Marie-Louise, a granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Marie-Louise was a unique figure in royal history, a woman of distinctive taste and a dedicated patron of the arts who amassed a spectacular collection of jewels. She acquired this tiara in 1937 for the coronation of George VI. It is a stunning example of Cartier's fascination with Indian design, featuring sapphires, pearls, and diamonds set in arches that mimic Mughal architecture. It is a massive, imposing piece. Some have even compared its shape to a bishop's mitre. I must admit, I admire Brigitte every time she wears it. Just imagine the weight of it! To carry such a substantial, architectural structure on one's head for an entire state banquet is no small feat. Yet she handles it with absolute ease. The Duchess looked magnificent, proving that these museum rarities are not dead artifacts, but living parts of the royal story. But do not let the majesty of the tiara distract you completely from the necklace. There is a fascinating historical secret resting at her throat. She wore 2 diamond rivieres, but look closely at the pendant. It is not just a simple diamond drop. It is a stunning diamond flower, the central cluster of a magnificent Victorian piece, Princess Helena's diamond corsage brooch. Helena was Queen Victoria's 3rd daughter. This jewel has traveled a long path, from Helena's collection back to the main royal line, then to Queen Mary, who gifted it to Princess Alice, the current Duke's mother. Usually, it is a massive stomacher brooch with scrolls and drops, but Brigitte, with her characteristic flair for adaptability, wore just the central element as a pendant. It is a brilliant way to keep Victorian history wearable in the 21st century. To complete this tour de force of diamonds, look at her earrings. These are the Gloucester Diamond Cluster earrings. Like so much of Brigitte's collection, they carry the weight of family history. They were a wedding gift to her mother-in-law, Princess Alice, in 1935, given by her own mother, the Duchess of Buccleuch. These antique clusters have witnessed the most solemn moments of the monarchy. Princess Alice wore them to the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, and Brigitte herself famously chose them for the coronation of King Charles III. They are substantial, classic, and utterly timeless, the perfect anchors for such a majestic tiara. From the perfection of the Duchess of Gloucester, let us turn to the Duchess of Edinburgh. It was a genuine relief to see Sophie back at the banquet table. She brings such a steady warmth to these occasions. However, her choice of jewelry has sparked quite a debate among royal watchers. On her head, she wore her signature piece, the aquamarine necklace tiara by G. Collins & Sons. We know it well. It is a modern, convertible jewel with a distinctive central wave rising to a single sea green stone. It is light, airy, and suits her perfectly. But it was the pairing that caused a stir. To accompany this pale green tiara, Sophie chose her spectacular high jewelry suite from Graf, the Nuage collection. The design is breathtaking. Abstract, free-form clouds of diamond pave, interspersed with bursting flowers of deep, intense royal blue sapphires. Individually, the pieces are magnificent, but worn together, the cool, translucent green of the tiara against the saturated electric blue of the necklace creates a combination that feels unresolved. It is a bold mix of water and sky, certainly, but many felt they didn't quite sing in harmony. This choice highlights a lingering question. With Sophie's elevated status as a duchess and her vital role in the monarchy, many of us are hoping to see her access the wider royal collection. Imagine how that magnificent Graf sapphire necklace would have shone if it had been paired with a simple, all-diamond tiara to let the blue stones breathe. Or, if we dare to dream, the Russian sapphire sunray tiara, should it still rest within the vaults. Sophie looked beautiful, of course. Her grace outshines any gemstone. But one cannot help but hope that the king might soon grant her access to a wider selection of jewels. Surely she has earned the right to a little more variety in her royal wardrobe. Ultimately, this evening proved one thing. The royal vaults are finally, truly opening. Under King Charles, it seems there are no longer untouchable reserves. The heavy doors are unlocking, and these pieces are being allowed to tell their stories once again. But now, I must turn the question to you, because I am genuinely torn. Who was the absolute sensation of the evening for you? Was it the nostalgic shock of seeing the Indian Circlet return on Catherine? Or were you more intrigued by Queen Camilla's bold modernization of the rare Greville emeralds? Or perhaps for you, the sheer, majestic presence of the Duchess of Gloucester stole the show? I look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments. I always love seeing the details you notice. And if you enjoyed unraveling these stories with me today, I would be so grateful for your like. Please do subscribe so we don't miss our next chance to sit down together and explore the hidden history of royal jewels. Thank you so much for watching, and until we meet again.